Last time we met the cleric, the coordinator, the translator, the one who keeps the party pointed at the same target. We ended on a bit of a loose thread. In a smaller kingdom, the cleric wears a second hat, coordinates the team, and owns the strategy. But in larger kingdoms, the king doesn't lean on a cleric to double as strategist. The king appoints someone whose only job is the kingdom's defense as a whole. That person is the Chief Information Security Officer, the CISO. The CISO designs the defensive strategy and works with the cleric, or a team of clerics in larger kingdoms, to build the best team to carry it out. There's an interesting predictor of whether a security program actually has the authority to do its job, and it lives in where the CISO reports, and that decision is sometimes widely debated. Welcome back. I'm the architect. At the individual level, someone coordinates the specialists and translates their work for the business. This is the cleric, the security manager, leader of the adventuring party. At the organizational level, however, the same function gets a different title, the CISO, or less majestically, the grand poobah of budget meetings and bad news. Today we're going to talk about what the CISO actually owns, who they report to, why that's sometimes a hotly debated subject, how the team underneath them gets structured, and what a kingdom does when it can't afford one at all. Above the security manager sits the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. The CISO is the cleric at the organizational level, not managing the day-to-day work of the security team, managing the security program as a business function, reporting to leadership, setting the security strategy, owning the relationship with the executive team, deciding where the program invests over a 3-year horizon. The CISO translates security into board language, not vulnerabilities, material risk, not incidents, business continuity, not compliance, legal exposure, and contractual obligation. The CISO is the reason the security team has a mandate at all, the reason there is a budget line, the reason the crown takes the walls seriously. In smaller organizations, the security manager is the CISO, wearing both hats, doing the coordination and the strategy simultaneously. Here's a decision that sounds boring, and it isn't. Disclaimer up front, this part is opinionated. There are many schools of thought on who the CISO should report to. Good arguments exist on all sides. These are just my opinions on them. So, who does the CISO report to? In a lot of organizations, the CISO reports to the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer, the person who owns technology delivery, the systems, the infrastructure, the code, the uptime. That arrangement has a problem baked into it. The CTO's job is to ship technology. The CISO's job is to sometimes say, don't ship that yet. When the person you report to is graded on speed, and your job is sometimes to be the reason things slow down, you are structurally set up for a losing argument. Now, to be fair, that's not a law of physics. Some CTOs are the exception. A CTO who actually understands security doesn't see the CISO as friction. They see them as day one. That's the entire premise of shift left. Build the control into the pipeline before the code ships, instead of bolting it on after. When a CTO gets that, the CISO isn't slowing the roadmap down. They're on it. That pairing, when it happens, might be the best structure there is. Same incentives, same vocabulary, no translation required. The problem isn't that it can't work, it's that it's rare. You need a technical executive fluent enough in security to treat it as an engineering discipline instead of a compliance line item, and an org that hired for that on purpose. Most orgs didn't. Most CTOs weren't picked for it. So the exception is real, it's just not the way to bet. The alternative that's gained ground over the last decade, the CISO reports directly to the CEO, or to the board, through an audit or risk committee. Not because the CTO relationship is inherently broken, because independence is worth something. These aren't quite the same thing either. Reporting to the CEO gets the CISO a direct line to the one person who owns every trade-off in the company at once. Revenue, headcount, risk tolerance, all in one seat. The case gets heard by someone with the full picture, and the authority to act on it immediately. The trade-off: the CEO is still one person, with their own incentives, usually growth, usually the next earnings call. Independence from the CTO doesn't mean independence from every pressure in the building. Reporting to the board, specifically through an audit or risk committee, goes a step further. That's a body whose actual legal job is oversight, fiduciary duty, not quarterly targets. A CISO briefing the board isn't asking for a favor. They're fulfilling a governance requirement the board is obligated to take seriously. A CISO who doesn't need the CTO's approval to raise an uncomfortable risk raises it faster and more honestly. Picture the same incident under both structures. A critical vulnerability turns up in a system the CTO's roadmap needs live by Friday. Under the CTO reporting model, the CISO raises the risk to the person who owns that Friday deadline, the same person who gets measured on hitting it. Guess which conversation is harder to have, honestly? Under the CEO or board reporting model, the CISO raises the same risk to someone who isn't personally on the hook for Friday. The deadline gets weighed against the risk on its own merits, not against someone's quarterly targets. Same vulnerability, same team, same finding, different outcome decided entirely by a box on an org chart. 2 bonus flavors because you'll probably run into both. I have. The CISO reporting to the chief legal officer or general counsel. I call this a cousin of the CEO and board model. Legal's entire job is managing the company's exposure to risk and liability, which overlaps with security's job more than people expect. There's a practical bonus, too. Findings routed through legal can sometimes fall under attorney-client privilege, which matters a great deal the day something ends up in court. Not identical to CEO or board reporting, but it rhymes. Then there's the one I have a genuine personal problem with. The CISO reporting to the CFO. On paper, it sounds neutral. Finance isn't shipping code, so where's the conflict? Here's where. The CFO's entire job is measured in the cost control and margin, and security, done properly, costs money before it saves any. Tools, headcount, assessments, incident response retainers you hope you never use. Put the CISO under the person whose bonus depends on the budget getting smaller, and you've recreated the exact same structural conflict as the CTO model, just with a different word on the scoreboard. Speed becomes spend. The losing argument stays the same. The reporting line is one decision. How the team underneath the CISO is organized is another. 2 common models. Centralized. One security team, one set of specialists, serving the whole organization. Every product team, every business unit, come to the same rogue, the same wizard, the same paladin, or teams thereof, depending on the size of your organization. Consistent standards, clear ownership, consolidated visibility. The trade-off? The central team becomes a bottleneck the moment the organization grows faster than the team does. Federated or embedded. Security specialists sit inside the product teams that they support. A security engineer embedded with the payments team, as an example. another embedded with the mobile team. Faster decisions, closer context, security that actually understands what's being built. The trade off? Standards drift. The embedded engineer on the payments team and the embedded engineer on the mobile team start making different calls on the same category of risk. Most mature organizations land on a hybrid. A small central team that sets standards and handles the hardest problems, embedded specialists who apply those standards close to the work. And then there's the model built for organizations too small for any of this, the virtual CISO, or the vCISO. A fractional executive, often a consultant, who provides a CISO level strategy on board reporting without a full time salary attached to it. They set the strategy. They may not run daily operations. That gets left to whoever's actually on the ground. The vCISO model exists because strategy still matters even when you can't afford a full executive to own it alone. The core lesson. The org chart is a security control. Not a metaphorical one, an actual one. Where the CISO sits, who they report to, and how the team beneath them is structured determines whether security has a seat at the table or just a ticket queue. A brilliant cleric reporting into a structure that guarantees they lose every budget fight is still going to lose most of those fights. A mediocre CISO with a direct line to the board and real independence can still get more done than a brilliant one buried 3 layers deep under someone whose incentives run the other way. The org chart doesn't replace the people, but it decides how much their competence is even allowed to matter. Your quest objective. If you work at an organization with a security function, find out who the most senior security person reports to. Not their title, their reporting line. CEO, CTO, legal, someone else. Ask yourself what the reporting line predicts about how much authority they actually have. If you're earlier in your career, research how the companies you admire structured their security teams. Centralized, federated, something else? It's often written into job postings if you know how to look for the language. Understanding the shape of the org before you join it tells you a lot about what the job will actually feel like once you're in it. A reporting line is a promise about how much you'll be heard. Read it before you sign anything. We've now covered the whole party and the layer above it, which raises a question I've dodged for 23 episodes. Who's actually telling you all of this? Next time, I answer that directly. Who the architect is, and where that role fits in a security organization that already has a CISO, a cleric, and everyone else that we've covered. I'm the architect. We'll talk soon.